We had another game this past week. Alabama took on South Carolina. It was at noon. It was definitely an interesting one. Kind of kept people's eyeballs on it for the majority of the game. Bama found themselves on upset watch for the second week in a row. And, the question that we kind of left this game is, it's a win, but is Alabama's problem deeper than their defense?
So in this game, I would say, and for the season so far, I would say that the problem is maybe just barely deeper than defense, but defense is the number one problem. I think the biggest problem for Alabama right now is defensive play calling and scheming. And I can get back to that because where I think everyone's mind goes is that there's culture problems, there's coaching problems, and there might be slight culture problems, players getting buy-ins, is there fight in the defense? I don't think any of this is exclusive to Alabama. It's the new college football where it's harder to get players to buy in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's easier to pinpoint that for Alabama because they do have a new coach in transition from one of the best coaches of all time.
Yep.
So it's easy to point at other things, his hoodie or him being happy after a game that they won at home. You're happy you win a football game. Like there's things to improve on, but you're not going to sit here and yell at players. And people that say that Nick Saban was that way is not true either. Because we could roll a clip if we wanted to of Nick Saban saying, "When did we stop being happy with winning a football game?" I know I'm ranting here, but there's going to be growing pains when you when the best coach retires of all time. Not really an opinion there, really just what it is. And you bring in a guy and he's had 6 games. There's going to be growing pains.
Yep.
Look, a coach doesn't care about your parlay or your point spread. You win the football game. And I think that defense is the biggest problem. And they're getting there. I think that this was their best defensive game that they've played this season so far from an improvement standpoint. They started bringing blitzes in unique ways and look what happened. They got turnovers. That it wasn't just send 4, drop 7, keep some linebackers in the middle. It was, let's get some guys involved. They had some linebacker blitzes. We saw some of the safeties get down in the blitzes at the end of the game, and it worked. So the path is paved to go the right way. I think that people are making a bigger problem out of something that maybe isn't the issue.
Yeah. And look, Alabama is, that 5-star restaurant you always go to. There's new management now. It's the same cuts of meat. It's the same, same lobster mac. It's for some reason, it's not hitting the same way that we've expected it to hit. Right. And less food aside, I'm a big guy. I like to eat. It's more so just, I think people have become accustomed to Bama winning in a certain way. Right. And I think there's 2 themes here. There's a new coach, new regime, new era of college football where you have to focus on retention and adding new players, right? Like keeping a lot of those guys, right? You lost Caleb Downs last year. We were really happy on Saab being there this year, right? So like that's overall looking like a okay trade.
Yeah.
On the other side, taking the portal and some of the macroeconomic dynamics of college football, it's more so just the bar that Saban has set for this defense, what this team has done, what they do against teams historically like South Carolina. I think I asked it last time, right? Like this is the second opportunity for Kalen DeBoer to pass the test of, like, we are who we think we are, and we're going to dominate a team like this. Like, how do you play against teams that fans expect you to dominate? We didn't see domination, so the question becomes, like, is it the defense? Is it the offense? Is it the culture? And I agree with you. The defense looked significantly better this game, but then it was like, well, where's the offense?
Yeah.
And so that's an area where I'd love to hear you kind of shed more light on, honestly.
Yeah, and I think offense is like you're due to have a turnover. Quarterbacks have turnovers. They're not going into the year with it. And I'm like the biggest Jalen Milroe defender. That was a bad game. He played a bad game. And the offense didn't fire on all cylinders. And right now, this Alabama team doesn't have the defensive prowess to afford that. And that's what happened here. If the offense was playing where they should have, if you had a turnover in the end zone, if they were playing where they should have, then the defense would have been fine with 25 points. That last touchdown might not have even happened to Nick Harbor there because they wouldn't have been throwing the prayer. So, the defensive side of the coaching aside, coaching will get figured out. Fans better settle in on it because Kalen DeBoer will be the coach at Alabama, and that's not changing. but the
Yeah.
whole staff is new. So there's these growing pains. And I told you this, I texted you this earlier, that I think dynasty football is kind of a dying art
Yeah. Yeah.
where it's harder to keep that. It comes from having a full clip of players that are going to be, freshmen that develop, sophomores that develop.
Yeah.
And you now have to like keep those guys. You have to keep recruiting them, or you have to play them right away, or they're going to leave. There's more
Right.
parity in college football. So yeah, we were talking about that, and it's just, I think there needs to be a little bit of grace given. I know that it's a team with high expectations, but they are performing. They're the number 7 team in the country.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough, right? So it's and just kind of bringing it back, like, is this defense, is the problem deeper than defense? Like, I think both of our answers are kind of, the defense looked better. I still need to see more. They're still under my watch to continue to see them to improve their performance. They did a good job against South Carolina. The bigger picture is we're seeing some of the depth challenges that have come from this portal era, like you said, right? If you're a freshman coming in, you wouldn't transfer your sophomore year to sit out till your junior year. Now you can transfer and play somewhere else. So if you stayed there your sophomore year and you saw the light to start your junior year, you're not going anywhere. So now you have 2 years under the same coaching staff, under the same coaching. That's a lot different than bringing in, new receivers, new defensive backs. Luckily they were able to retain their top lineman coming back from Iowa, right? But you don't get a brand new center, so those aren't the problem per se fully, but you are seeing some of that new team chemistry develop on top of just a newer era where players are a little bit more empowered and have a little bit different type of a voice when it comes to the culture inside of the organization. And
Yeah.
we're really seeing that here. And like you said, with the parity and the gap between teams, it looks closer. Like, it looks closer with South Carolina versus them. It obviously was closer against them with Vanderbilt. And in some ways, we're seeing it with Georgia too, though. I mean, Georgia's playing close games with Mississippi State. They're playing close games with Kentucky. So it's kind of across the board.
Yeah, it is. And all that to say, it is something that's getting sorted out from what I can just see from the side, But all that to say, even though the problem may not be deeper than the defense is a problem. Like,
Yep.
I'm not gonna skirt past that. It might look better,
Right.
but they are a problem. You said it early in the episode, they're leaving freshmen out on islands out there, and things will happen when you do that. You're just hoping it doesn't happen enough to beat you in the game, but
Yep.
they're not sending pressure according to what they need to do. And when they do, it works. So I really hope that this isn't a defense who's holding stuff back, like
Right.
from a play calling standpoint, because you got to win some games. Like,
Of
don't
course.
wait until, because at the end of the game, they're trying to put some pressure on Sellers. And when they did, they get turnovers.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you had that, you've been practicing that. Why didn't you do that? You didn't have a single sack against Vanderbilt. Like, and this week you get 4. Like, why are you not? Where was this?
Right.
So
Like, it took a Vanderbilt like performance to see these types of plays called. It feels like, right. Like, I'm not
yeah,
in that room when they're watching film and they're scheming on what plays to call, but it was like, to your point, it's like, where was this last week?
yeah,
Where has this been this season? We're glad to see it. Or for some people, they're glad to see it, right? Not everybody, but we're glad to see it if you're an Alabama fan. But
yeah.
it's like, where was it?
Yeah, and it's like you at the end of the game, they get down there, they score. Okay, they missed the 2-point conversion, they get the onside kick, and it's like, oh man, like, we need to do something, and they're bringing all this pressure, and it's like, why did you wait till now? Like, it's
Right.
working. Why did you
Yeah.
wait till now to do that? Because when they mix in the unique looks, they got some safeties involved in blitzes. The linebackers blitzed a lot
Yeah.
more this week. It worked. So when you're
And,
playing later this year, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, like, I mean, I'm just thinking, right? Like, that's the type of defense. If I was a recruit or a player in the portal, I want to play for. Like, I want to play for a defense that gives me more opportunities to find myself in position for sacks. Like, defense that's creating pressure where there's more opportunities to create interceptions because the quarterback's under duress. Like, that to me, it's an obvious statement, but like, that's how you continue to get the best players in the country with that cursive A on your helmet, right? Like, or not on your helmet, but the number on your helmet, the cursive A on the field, right?
Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts there.
Yeah. I mean, this last thing on this and looking forward for Alabama, where the defense needs to go from here. You're going to play quarterbacks that you need to pressure. Nico is not as good as I think we thought. So I'm not going to count him out of the situation. But when you're looking at Brady Cook and Nussmeier, both of which have weapons, you don't want to leave Luther Burden on an island with your freshman DB. You
Don't
don't
do
want to.
that.
You got Theo Weiss on the other side. You're playing against Nussmeier, and you saw what happened. He just threw up a ball to Kyron Lacey, and that's how the game ended. And that was 1v1, the safety coming over. You don't want that to happen here. So you need to get pressure on them because that's when they're going to be mistake prone. You can't just trust that you can out muscle 5 linemen with your sending 4 on your D line. It's just not going to happen as much as you might think.
And it's not, again, I think it's like the last point, and maybe I don't think we're dragging it, but it's like, again, you're going off of what we've seen with Saban, right? I think he made like 8 of the last 10 conference championships, like something ridiculous like that. They've always had amazing offenses, but defense was like the pillar of Alabama football, right? Like obviously you had Mac Jones, you had Tua, but those AJ McCarron teams, I mean, it was more about the defense than the offense. Like it was more like the defense is so strong, it propels the offense to dominate and you suffocate teams. We're not seeing that. It's what we're used to seeing. And we saw a little bit of it last year, but it's just a trend that we're seeing. And I think you had talked about it. This kind of started a little bit last season with some of these other factors in college football. But to me, that's to me when I think about Alabama football, I think about like just like that game. Even though it was LSU versus Alabama, it's like that defense had like 7 or 8 pros on it, right? And so that to me has always kind of been their bread and butter. The offense has just been mostly running ball and a strong passing game, but built on the defense to me.
Yeah. They'll get there. They'll get there. Let the coaching develop, let the players develop. You hate to see it, but Tennessee next week is going to be a huge test for what this team can do defensively and offensively because they're going up against a tough defense. So we'll see what Alabama has in the tank.